This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
What's going on, everybody? A good Friday afternoon to one and all. 20th day of July, 2018. Dan Graca is sitting in once again for the man himself, Stephen A. Smith. You know the phone number, you know the drill. It's 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Graca, Graca. A lot to get to as we close out the work week here in style. Baseball resumed last night with the Chicago Cubs knocking off the Cardinals. I guess you can't blame Mike Matheny for basically more of the same that you saw from St. Louis last night. Sloppy play, a couple of errors, boneheaded mistakes on the base paths, but I guess it wasn't the manager's fault after all. They're going to have many, many problems that they're going to have to sort out here between now and the end of the baseball season. Everybody else gets back onto the diamond later on tonight. But as always, we are brought to you by Discover. Get your free credit scorecard today. And even if you're not a Discover customer, it includes your FICO credit score. And checking your scorecard won't hurt your credit. Learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply. And with that, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk. Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. And there's certain things we will get into a little bit later on in the program, namely the NBA, and it always seems like that carousel is turning. Carmelo Anthony now has himself a new home, except, well, we don't know what home that's going to be, as he was traded from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Atlanta Hawks, but the Hawks are just going to buy him out there, and he's going to be free to go wherever he so chooses. And you know the usual suspects, whether it's Houston, whether it's going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. I've said for many times, I think that the Lakers are the best fit for Carmelo right there, because, look, the Lakers and LeBron are not going to win a championship this year. That's not going to happen. Are they on the right road? Sure. When you have LeBron James on your team, you're moving in the right direction. That's a given. But as they're presently constituted right now, they don't have a shot to compete with the Golden State Warriors and even the Houston Rockets. They don't have a lot of guys who can go in there, knock down their own shots, create their own offense. Carmelo Anthony, say what you want about him. I think that he would benefit playing on a team like the Lakers. He can get his shots, which are something that he is really consumed with right now, as he is not interested in being a role player, a guy coming off the bench, blah, blah, blah. He wants to go out there and shoot. That's what he does. He's a volume scorer. And I know maybe he's not the same player that he was earlier in his career, but I think that he would go a long way towards at least giving his buddy LeBron James a little bit more of a helping hand. So we can get into all that stuff later on in the course of the program. And also, for all the New York Knicks fans, okay, a couple of weeks ago during the NBA draft, I guess it's more than a couple of weeks, we're approaching almost a month. Last month when we had the NBA draft, and the Knicks were sitting there on the clock, and Michael Porter Jr. was still sitting there in the green room, still hadn't heard his name called, was dropping like a rock in the first round of that NBA draft. Because why? Because of the medical concerns, because of the back issues, and you didn't know if that was going to rear its ugly head again. So there were a lot of teams that passed on that player. And so the Knicks called Kevin Knox's name, and he was serenaded by a chorus of boos over at the Barclays Center. How do you take this kid? How do you pass up Michael Porter? Michael Porter, the best player in the draft. The guy's going to go on to be one of the all-time greats. And you took this guy who, has got some athletic ability, but how do we know that he's even going to be a legitimate contributor for a decade plus in the NBA? Isn't it funny how things play themselves out? Because what happened here in the last few weeks? Kevin Knox goes out to Summer League in Las Vegas. Now, granted, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that Summer League is the end-all, be-all. And he's not playing against the same competition that he is going to be playing against once the season starts for real. Okay, I'm more than willing to acknowledge that right now, because it's not fair to equate the two. I get it. But he certainly showed you a lot. He was on the all-Vegas Summer League team, and he raised some eyebrows, for sure. And he showed you that, you know what, maybe the Knicks got something here. Maybe they got themselves a diamond in the rough at the lower end of that top 10 in the first round. Meantime, Michael Porter Jr., we find out that he had to go under the knife again. Had himself another procedure on that back. That's now 2 back surgeries in the last year. I don't know about you, but that would give me cause for concern. And now there's no timetable as to when he's going to be able to get out there on the basketball court. And so all the Knicks fans and all the people out there that were booing Kevin Knox and saying, how do you not draft Porter? You maybe want to do over on that one? Do you maybe want a mea culpa? Would you like to have that one back? And this is saying all this without Kevin Knox even playing a real game. But guess what? Whatever Kevin Knox does out there once the season starts, October, November, he's going to be already adding to his totals while Michael Porter Jr. is going to be on the sidelines. And you wish him well. You hope he gets back out on the court sooner rather than later and is a contributor for the Denver Nuggets. But you know what? That's not going to happen anytime soon. Meantime, Kevin Knox is going to go out there and start to begin to write his own story, build his own legacy as a member of the New York Knickerbockers, and you hope be one of the driving forces for that team turning it around and being a major player again in the Eastern Conference. Because it's been a few years, right? It's been a few years. Can all hope for a turnaround. It makes the league better, right? Knicks are good. The NBA is better. It's more exciting. You want New York's team, the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden, to be good again and to be part of the conversation. Speaking of having a do-over, that leads me to the NFL. And I was driving around yesterday, going out to dinner, sitting in traffic, and just, combing through the dials, listening to different things, some music, talk, whatever. I talk, so I don't listen to that much of it. I need to kind of recharge the batteries a little bit because this is what I do. So sometimes I'll just drive in silence or put the music on, whatever, unwind a little bit. But flipping through the dial, and I hear this story about the Miami Dolphins and the national anthem. And this controversy, again, rears its ugly head when it comes to how you should behave during the national anthem. And here are the Dolphins, who are going to be opening up training camp sooner rather than later. And the Associated Press got hold of a document that the National Football League asked all the 32 teams to provide as to how they would go about handling the situation and handling the respective anthem protocol and how they would go about imparting discipline on certain players if they did not so-called respect the anthem. And one of the things that was up for discussion were, in violation of the personal conduct policy or, whatever you want to call it, that the Miami Dolphins would certainly have on the table a 4-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team for anybody who violates the new anthem policy. And, of course, that creates another uproar, which, look, this story does any single time that we talk about it, right? And it's not going away. And anytime you bring up the anthem and you bring up its relation to the National Football League, that's why I said a do-over is needed. Because I think that if the NFL could go back and have a do-over with this whole scenario, I think that they would have done it and then some. Don't you? I mean, let's be smart about it. Hindsight is 20/20. And do you really think that what has transpired in the last couple of years from this whole thing, which started way back in 2016 during the preseason, as a matter of fact, with Colin Kaepernick, and it has just gone on and on and on, and it has just led to more acrimony between the players, between the owners, between the National Football League, where if the NFL, just from the get-go, decided to put out a policy which both sides would have collectively bargained, number one, would have come to an agreement on, and more so than anything else, at least maybe been a little bit more receptive to hearing the concerns of its players, right? I mean, you look at the NBA right now, right? The NBA and the way Adam Silver, for example, dealt with that situation with the national anthem in the NBA, right? The way they handled that was perfect. They had meaningful dialogue. They talked it out. And they said, you know what? We'll support the players. We got our players' backs. And in turn, the players respected the league, working hand in hand. You don't read about these tensions. You don't read about these hostilities with the NBA and its clubs and its owners and whatnot. It's only the National Football League. Now, granted, the NBA got a little bit of a head start on this whole thing because, let's be real, it involved the National Football League first. Then it fell on the NBA's plate where they came along and they said, well, we're going to have to react. We're going to have to also say our piece on this whole thing. Let's kind of take a step back and just observe how the National Football League is handling things and then maybe kind of build our own guidelines from here on out. And just between you and me, given all the problems that ensued with the NFL, I'm sure that when the NBA locked the doors and had those board meetings and tried to decide how we should handle this, I'm sure that it came up in conversation more than once or twice. Hey, let's just try to do something and act unlike the NFL, right? Let's take the anti-NFL approach when it comes to this whole thing. It might behoove us to do so. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And that's why, again, you don't hear anything about the NBA and its players and its owners and its teams and its coaches and its commissioners and everything. There's harmony there. There's a mutual understanding for both sides. And I think to a certain extent, you've seen some growth. And even with all the nastiness and all the back and forth with the NFL over the last couple of years, you have seen meaningful dialogue. There has been, right? Because players have put their foot forward and they've gone out there and they've tried to at least engage the conversation and opened it up to a wider scale. Not just so much as to what happens for those 2-3 minutes before a football game when the anthem is being played. No, it's taking it outside the stadium. Taking it outside and away from the football field. And the things that we're so-called against and that we're trying to call to mind and open up people's eyes and draw attention to, those type of things can benefit from what we're doing here. And then you've had certain owners who have stepped forward, having community initiatives, donating their time, their efforts, their dollars to try to raise awareness for these type of things. But it isn't a perfect solution just yet. There's still a long ways to go. And that's why anytime you see something like what trickled out there from the Miami Dolphins, it led the NFL to basically say, well, you know what? No. Don't get the wrong idea. We're still talking here. We're still trying to figure this thing out. And if you remember something that happened earlier this year when they came out with the protocol for the upcoming season about, all right, if you don't want to stand for the anthem, fine, but stay in the locker room. And then anybody that does elect to come out onto the field and stand on the sidelines when the anthem is being played, you better stand for the anthem, you better observe the anthem, or else you could be looking at punishments from the football team. It was an imperfect solution. I mean, that's what it was, right? Because they're kind of hoping in the fact, well, all right, if people are still going to continue and if some of these players still want to call to mind some of the injustices that are happening out there, which is why they're doing this in the first place, right? They just hope that they're all going to stay inside. Well, is that a solution, though? Are you really getting anywhere? Because when you sit there and the game starts, right, on a Sunday afternoon, and the camera's panning the sidelines, and they're showing the different teams standing for the anthem, when the anthem is shown, by the way, right? Doesn't happen each and every week. And for a lot of years, it never happened. As a matter of fact, the National Football League only, I think it was about 10 years ago, ever made it mandatory that teams and players and coaches had to be out there on the sidelines to begin with for the national anthem. Shoot, I remember going to games my whole life. Season tickets. Back in the 90s, for example, early 2000s, there were times the anthem was being played, sidelines were ghost towns. Ghost towns. Nobody was out there. And then the anthem was over and it fired you up for the game, and then out came the players. Out came the starting lineups, and you're ready to go. Let's play some football. So now in a perfect world, or at least the perfect world as the NFL sees fit, okay, you're going to have these guys who may think that they're proving a point, and you're not going to have them out there on the sidelines. You hope that they would stay in the locker room, right? At least the NFL does. So I'll get back to my original point here of, if one of the networks are going to be showing the sidelines during the anthem, are you sitting there in the back of your mind, keeping score, keeping a running tally in your head, as to who's out there, who's not out there? Oh, wait a sec. Nick Foles isn't out for the anthem. Did they show Nick Foles? I didn't see him. Did they show Dak Prescott? Wait, I'm trying to remember. Did they show him? I mean, if you're home sitting on your couch or with your buddies, or you're out at a bar or anywhere that you watch a football game, or at the stadium, for example, how cognizant are you of what's going on the sidelines during the national anthem? Really? And this has been going on now for a couple of years. Once Sunday at 1 o'clock hits, I don't know about you, I can't wait for football. I've had to wait the entire week. Sunday at 1 o'clock is extremely special. You look forward to that. The last thing that I am concerned with and the last thing that I care about is who's standing on the sidelines and who's not. Who's standing for the national anthem and who's not. Is it really that big of a deal at this point? And are there political angles to this whole? Absolutely there are. Absolutely. It's been proven. And this is not a political discussion here. That's not what we're getting into. It's got nothing to do with it. What it keeps coming back to is a league which should have been more proactive from the get-go. So we still wouldn't be talking about this situation, a couple of weeks before training camps open and a couple of weeks before the preseason starts, and games are going to be played here for 2018, which will now be, by the way, if you want to go back to even when it started with Kaepernick in 2016, this is going to be the third season of professional football where this is going to be part of the narrative. Third year. And this couldn't have been resolved beforehand? This couldn't have been resolved? Now, granted, it grew from 2016 to 2017. And last year, it was certainly more of a talking point, I think, than it was the year before, because you had more people taking part, which is fine. But how have we not been able to get a resolution here? How have they not been able to figure this thing out? Really? When you see comments like, all options are still on the table, we're talking about this. They're talking to the Players Association, blah, blah, blah. Think about where things are right now with the Players Association and the relationship with the league, right? I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I really don't. I really and truly don't. That's not what I'm all about. I love football as much as anybody. Love it. Okay? Favorite sport. Love it. But think about when that collective bargaining agreement is nearing its end, right? Which is going to be in another few years now. Just in another few years. And think about all the things that have transpired since. Obviously, this is a huge part of it. A huge part of it. But they're button heads. And if they can't come to an agreement on something like this, as to where you should be while the national anthem is playing, how do you think they're actually going to be able to hammer out an agreement when it comes to something that really, really, really is important, like to all of us? Money, right? That's their livelihood. That's their jobs. That's how they support themselves, their families. And oh, by the way, you've also had some other issues as it pertains to football and the dangers of playing football and head injuries and concussions and CTEs. Boy, those should be some fun negotiations, don't you think? Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that room? So remember, you had to have some people back in 2011 step in at the 11th hour to save off a lengthy work stoppage. Because for a while, it looked like we were maybe heading in that direction. And I know we're still a few years away. I don't know about you. I'm a little concerned. When you see players also starting to speak up, like Todd Gurley, for example, earlier in the week, and he made the comment as it regards to salaries in the National Football League. Right, and contracts aren't guaranteed in the NFL, certainly not like they are in the NBA, where you get every single cent. Now, a team can guarantee you your contract, but Cousins got, 3 years and whatever it was from the Minnesota Vikings, but you're not going to get a fully guaranteed deal more often than not from a team if you're playing pro football. And there's certainly a greater inherent risk playing pro football than you would playing in the NBA. But Todd Gurley went out and made a comment like, geez, look at some of these dollars that are being exchanged with the NBA. When you're seeing marginal players, guys who really haven't accomplished a heck of a lot in terms of the grand scope of their sport, and they're getting paid exponentially more on average than some of the top players are in the National Football League. How is that possible? All right, that's one of the things that is also going to be at the forefront of concerns when they're talking about a CBA. So this anthem thing still isn't going away. The money issue certainly isn't going away. Guys are going to be unhappy. But you know what the NFL does, and where the NFL has had the upper hand in a lot of these negotiations? Because the players can want X, Y, Z. The players can want a little bit more support on certain things, i.e. like the anthem aspect. But you know what the NFL does? And at the end of the day, it's the same color that rules all, and that's green. The NFL will say, okay, you want this, you want the X, Y, Z, then we're going to have to take back a little of the green stuff. But then a way to sweeten the pot, if the NFL kicks in a little bit more money, then the players are going to relent and just say, all right, fine, we'll make ends meet. Just give us a couple extra bucks. And the NFL's a cash cow. The NFL's a gold mine. We know that. They print money. Bottom line, this isn't going away anytime soon. You'd like to think it would. And I still think at the end of the day, once September rolls around and we start playing games, the games are still going to trump everything else, and the games are still going to be what matters more than anything else. And all the stuff about the anthem, yeah, you're going to hear a lot about it maybe during the week. But once Sunday rolls around, if you're like me, you worry about the game. You care about the game. But as far as the relationship goes between the NFL, its players, that's not getting smoothed over anytime soon. And that's something that I think is a greater cause for concern as we move forward and look to that new CBA, which needs to be hammered out in the next few years. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Want to hear from you. The state of the NFL, the state of the Players Association versus the league. And are we headed for Armageddon again? 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. Now, before you hit the road for any vacation this summer, visit GNC. You need to stay healthy, and GNC has the highest quality solutions and supplements in the industry. GNC brand products pass up to 150 quality checks. You can be sure you're getting the best prices with GNC's price match guarantee. GNC doesn't just match prices, they'll beat them by $1. Or try something new. If it's not right for you, return it for a full refund. You heard right, a full refund. This summer, live well with GNC. Exclusions apply. See an associate or GNC.com for details. Dan Graca, closing out the work week, in for Stephen A. here. We'll get this one rolling on ESPN Radio.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm as happy as a clam.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will be, quote, as happy as a clam, unquote. The Geico legal team cannot accurately verify clams even experience the complex human emotional state known as happiness. As an invertebrate mollusk living half submerged on the ocean floor with no arms, legs, or wireless access, what's there to be happy about? A clam's all like, oh, I'm so happy I didn't get turned into New England clam chowder today. Pronounced regionally as chowder. Chowder. Oh, that's so fun to say. What were we talking about again?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. ESPN Radio. 888-SAY-ESPN is the telephone number. 888-729-3776. You can tweet at me at Dan Graca, Graca. We'll read some tweets, too, throughout the course of the program. You know when something's so obvious, they call it a no-brainer? Well, here's a big one. Barbasol is finally making razors. How about that? Introducing the Barbasol Ultra 6 Plus. It's got 6 ultra-thin blades for a close, comfortable shave. You can go to barbasol.com right now and save some money. That's a no-brainer, too. When's the last time you were at the game or concert? Well, go to vividseats.com/ESPN today for your exclusive discount offer. Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. And now with the unofficial start to the second half of the baseball season, it's rolling right along. Tune in tomorrow. Aaron Judge and the Yanks host the Mets. No player, huh? Just the Mets. Boy, that's sad. Presented by Barbasol Razors. Coverage begins at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and the ESPN app. Talking NFL, the players versus the owners, an issue which seems like not going away anytime soon. We'll start it off with Mike in Westchester. Mike, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Yeah, how you doing, Dave?
What's up, Mike?
I just want to say you was talking about the NFL. The NBA had it easy, had to follow the NFL, but it's not true. The NBA had a policy, collective bargaining, about the national anthem in the 90s. Like, you either had to come out and stand, or you had to stay in the locker room. So the NFL should have followed them.
Well, but the NBA issue, though, what I meant by that was the NBA issue never really had a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? So that wasn't something that was ever going to be a cause for concern. However, if you do remember, once the whole thing started with the NFL, there were a lot of NBA players who were asked to speak out on the issue and give their thoughts on it because, after all, they're public figures, they're famous athletes, and if they want to support their brethren as to what they're doing in some of these other sports, they're going to have to give their state of affairs as well. So, but big picture, you like the way the NBA has handled everything.
Correct. They did a lot better. The NFL should have had that in their bargain when they first did everything, but they didn't. And right now it's just a mess because it was never about the flag anyway.
No, and Mike, I thank you for the phone call. It's a shame that it's dragged on as long as it has, right? As I said, this is the third year that this has become an issue. Shoot, I remember exactly. I was doing a show on a Saturday morning. I don't remember the exact date, but it was in the month of August. It had to be 2016. And I remember, you're reading through some stuff early in the morning, trying to see what happened late at night, the night before, whatever. And that was during the preseason of the NFL. And the 49ers were playing a game. And something happened with Colin Kaepernick, and it became a story. And it was just like one guy who had the story. I think it was Steve Weish from the NFL Network, NFL.com. I could be mistaken, but like one guy had it. And he was the one who was exchanging texts or whatever with Kaepernick and trying to get his side of the story. And then it just became this little thing. It wasn't even like some mass story. It was just in one place. And, oh, by the way, Kaepernick didn't stand for the anthem. And right there and then, I had a feeling this thing would blow up. Because things of this nature generally do. And lo and behold, how long did it take? A couple of days? And then when I came back on Monday to start the new week of shows, that was the story. That was the talking point. That was the number one talking point, hands down. Tyrone in Michigan up next. Tyrone, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing, Dan?
Good, Tyrone. Hey. What's going on?
No, nothing much. I've been listening all week, Dan. You've been doing a really great job, man. I want to give you a shout out there.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
There's one thing I want to share with you.
Yeah.
Dan, at the top of every hour, when the horn sound and the entry music, you're stepping on the horns, Dan. You're coming out on the one.
I'm stepping on the horn. See, Tyrone, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be honest, all right? I still consider myself a musician. I haven't picked up an instrument, though, in years, but I used to play in bands and everything, and then I had to get serious and had to get a job and, support myself. Couldn't do it with music. So my timing might be a little off. That is my excuse for stepping all over the horns. I apologize. I got to get back in the shop, if you know what I mean.
All good. Hey, as far as this anthem is concerned here, the owners had no problem passing a rule without the players' consent and without the union's consent. Now, all of a sudden, that the Miami owner, now all of a sudden they want to say, whoa, let's put a pause on it and let's meet with the players in the union. Unless a high-profile quarterback like a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, unless they speak up or unless an entire team stands together and says, you will respect us and you will treat us right, the players they got an uphill battle.
Here's the thing, though. If it's written aloud or written down in an agreement, kind of like what the NFL was nosing around earlier in the year, when they came up with that personal conduct policy or whatever delineation it's supposed to fall under, that anybody who disrespects the anthem, they have an option. They gave him a window. They gave him an out. You can stay in the locker room. Otherwise, you come out. If you don't, you're subjected to a fine, suspension, whatnot. If you have that language in there, then the teams can do whatever they want. It's not a perfect world. Of course, it's not a perfect solution either. There's holes all over that. But as long as you have that written down, and if the Players Association agree to it, then what do you expect the NFL to do? Right? It's almost like then you're daring them and you're tempting fate, unfortunately. You know, and if you want to point the finger at A.Smith and the Players Association, not just with this in particular, but what about in all the issues that they've had in the past? You know, everything, the funny thing about it is 9 times out of 10, whenever you hear about something that has drawn the ire of the players in the National Football League, whether it is about safety, whether it is about money, whether it is about them feeling that they are underpaid, whatever it might be, the anthem issue, in most instances, you look back to see, well, wait a sec, this was collectively bargained. The players agreed to this. So they could sit here and kick and scream and cry and complain, but they have nobody to blame but themselves. Blame your leadership, right? Blame your union head. Blame your player representatives. They were the ones that were keeping you in the loop and telling you exactly what was going on. You all voted for this. You know why they voted for it? Because it's the thing that I keep coming back to, like I said in the opening monologue. Because the one thing that is going to stick out like a sore thumb and is going to be the elephant in the room in any of these negotiations, big picture. The players want to make sure that they're going to get some money here. And they don't want to jeopardize that. And that is going to be their greatest area of concern, as it should be. As it should be. I like money, you like money. We got to live. Got to support ourselves. And they're playing a brutal, barbaric sport. Yes, it's for entertainment purposes. You and I and we all get entertained by playing football or by watching football. They got to play it, though. When the game is over, when the year is over, you know what? We get off our couches and go about our daily lives. We don't have to deal with the bumps, the bruises, the issues, you name it. They got to. Some worse than others. So they should try to get every single penny that they have coming to them. 888-SAY-ESPN's the telephone number, 888-729-3776. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's a Friday. It's ESPN Radio. But when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. Coming right back. Graca in for Stephen A. ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Make sure I'm coming in at the right time here on this one. I don't know. People are listening. People pick up on that stuff, like my buddy Tyrone. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio. And Stephen A. Smith Show brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. ESPN Radio also presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. You know, just listening to that song that they played coming in there. That's that song they play at the Patriot games a lot. And speaking of the Patriots, I guess Tom Brady is on vacation somewhere. And, you know, he's getting pictures surfaced of him and Giselle on the beach and, you know, walking around or whatever. And people are taking pot shots at Tom, saying that, you know, he looks a little out of shape, the vacation body, you know, the GQ was giving him a hard time, that, you know, he's looking a little flabby there, if you will. I mean, come on. They're in Costa Rica, apparently. And I'm looking at the picture right now. Weather doesn't look very good, I can tell you that. But, you know, leave the guy alone. He's 40 years old. You know, he's been playing in this league a lot longer than most guys at his age are still doing, and certainly at that level. You know, season's starting up in a little bit here. It's still the summer, technically. The last guy you're worrying about being ready for the start of the season is Tom Brady. And he's never been like one of these like super jack dudes to begin with anyhow. Let him go have a good time on vacation. My God. Geez, I'm going on vacation next week. Am I going to have to look around and make sure, that people aren't spying on me, what I look like? My God. I don't have time to exercise, work out. I probably should. Kevin in Illinois is up next. Kevin, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Dan. I've enjoyed listening to you all week.
Thanks, Kev. What's going on?
Well, I just think from the very get-go, we've missed, I think, a very important point to me and my family, and that is when you kneel or sit down or stay in the locker room, you're disrespecting the people who gave their lives to give you that right and that ability to protest, that gave you that right to hold a sign in front of an abortion clinic. And you can't take that minute to honor those people that give you that right to protest in your own time. So that is just where it doesn't make sense to me, is we talk about all this other stuff, but we don't talk about what that kneeling is doing to those people. And what about the kid that's in the stands that's paying that $350 to watch you collect the check at the end of the day for $300,000 to play 3 hours, when you have that right and that ability to play that game because of the people who sacrificed their lives to give us our freedom and our right to bear arms, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Look, Kev, you're not wrong with that, okay, because there are still a good deal amount of people out there who look at it as if you're disrespecting military, disrespecting the flag, disrespecting armed forces, the people that fought, the freedoms that we live by each and every day and get to live by each and every single day. That's all well and good. But as has been brought up a couple of times here by our callers here, and if you followed this story for the last couple of years, and if you sit back and you listen to these players and you listen to the ones who are calling for change, it's not about the flag that they're protesting. It's not about the military. They're protesting the injustices that are, still being administered to certain individuals in our society on a, fairly routine basis. Now, to each his own. Remember, one of the great freedoms that we have is the ability to go out there and, have a different opinion from someone else, from the guy next to you. All right? I'm an anthem guy. Just throwing it out there. I'm an anthem guy. Stand for the anthem. Salute the flag. That's me. But if these guys want to go about it a different way, like I said earlier, they're football players. They want to do that. It's not my team. Okay? It's not my team. All I know is, and all I want and all I expect from them at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, when the game starts for real, go out there and play football. Because that's how long the boundary is for our relationship. That's the extent of the relationship that I have with these players. You're the football player, I'm the fan. You play, I watch. You play, and well, because of my job, being in the media, you got to talk about it as well, right? I don't get too involved, and I try to separate the athlete from their personal lives, their beliefs, their politics, because that to me is inconsequential. It really is. I'm being 100% honest with you. I don't own a team, right? Not my club. I'm not going to have to answer these questions on their behalf. And why are they acting like this? Why are they doing that? That's not me. I don't have to get involved with that type of thing. It's no different than entertainers. If you pay money to go watch a guy in a movie. You watch the movie. I don't care what he's doing in his personal life. I don't care what he believes, you know what? But if it is that significant for you, then don't go, don't watch. And one of the things that we can't dispute, though, is that it is having a little bit of an effect on the popularity of the game because there are a lot of people that are tuning out because of this. Not saying that's the way you should believe, but you have every right to do so. We'll do more on this coming up in hour number 2 and then get back to some of the NBA matters that we touched on as well. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's ESPN Radio.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio. Friday afternoon, closing out the work week, going out strong. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. At Dan Graca is where you can find me on Twitter. We're talking a lot about the NFL here. And, you know, when a player doesn't like a contract, they hold out, right? Well, with Straight Talk Wireless, you never have to because there is no contract. They use the same exact 4G LTE towers as the big carriers, but for a lot less. Straight Talk Wireless only at Walmart. Refer to terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com. And ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is a big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit progressivecommercial.com. You know, as I said, I cannot wait for the season to start. You've seen a couple of teams now already open up training camp. You know, the Bears are there. The Ravens are there. I was just seeing video a little while ago on ESPN of the Ravens out on that practice field going through some drills here because they're going to play in the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, which, if I'm not mistaken, is next. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks from Thursday. Or, you know, yesterday was Thursday, so 2 weeks from yesterday, it's August 2nd is the Hall of Fame game. So think about that. I mean, it is right around the corner before we actually have a game. And I know that it's preseason, but it just whets your appetite and gets you kind of ready for the real thing. So much so, everybody this time of year wants to be the first ones to throw out there their predictions and to let you know what you think the season's going to have in store. And, you know, we all give our predictions, but I like to wait at least until, you know, the end of August. We get a little bit closer to the start of the season. Maybe as these teams start to go, suffer injuries. You hope nobody gets banged up too bad. But, you know, that's also influencing a big way what could happen on the field during the season. USA Today, Nate Davis, USA Today, went out there and picked every single game. Okay, all 267 games for the upcoming season in the National Football League. Now, let me throw a little caveat into this. Last year, I remember vividly when they made these same predictions, same organization, they said, among other things, that the Patriots would go 16-0. Didn't happen. They also said that the New York Jets, who everybody wanted to pinpoint as being like the worst team that was ever assembled in North American sports history, they were going to go 0-16, not even win a game. Again, did not happen. Everybody's getting in on predictions, right? Even Tony Romo, lead analyst for CBS, NFL on CBS, he picked the Packers and the Jaguars to make the Super Bowl. Tom Brady responded by that, wrote on social media, "We'll see, Tony. We will see." Maybe Tom did it while he was walking the beaches there in Costa Rica, out of shape with Giselle. I don't know. Maybe that's when he did it. But, I mean, these are silly. You have fun with it. But it's funny looking at some of these records. I guess no, pie in the sky type of declarations for this season with them because they don't have a team winning more than 12 games in the National Football League this year. Think about that. So the NFL is going to max out at 12-4. Last year you had the Patriots win 13, the Steelers won 13, the Eagles won 13, the Vikings won 13. So you had 4 teams exceed 12 wins. This year they don't think it's going to happen at all. They have, and it might surprise you, they have the Vikings at 12-4, the Rams at 12-4, and the Jaguars at 12-4. Not even the Patriots. They have the Pats winning 11 games, but still winning the AFC East. What's their Super Bowl prediction, you might ask? The Falcons are going to make it back to the big game, they say, for the second time in 3 years. And the Los Angeles Chargers at 10-6, they will win the AFC West and go on and get to the Super Bowl and then fall to the Atlanta Falcons. I like the Chargers. Right now, I'll tell you, they're my pick to win the AFC West, as you and I are speaking right now. They were my pick last year. And if not for some tomfoolery with the field goal kicking department, losing some nip and tuck affairs earlier in the season, they might have gone on and been a part of the postseason and had more of a successful campaign. I think they'll get that straightened out this year. They got a ton of playmakers on offense. They got 2 bookend defensive ends in Bosa and Ingram who can wreak havoc on the opposing passer. I think the Chargers are really good. Super Bowl's a different story, but I think they'll find a way to win that division. And as our producer John Winthrop reminds me, there's no way, though, that the Chargers can go to a Super Bowl because they don't have their own stadium. So anything can get factored into this. Any single thing. And yes, the Chargers still don't have a stadium. Remember, they're playing in the soccer stadium out there in California while their new palace that they're going to share with the Los Angeles Rams is still being constructed out there in, what is that, in Englewood, right? They're building the new stadium out there. 888-SAY-ESPN, the telephone number, 888-729-3776. Let's say hi to Scotty in L.A. Scotty, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, Scott.
Thank you for letting me in. Listen, as a typical frustrated fan nowadays, outside of Stephen A. Smith, I'm still waiting for somebody on this station to actually condemn anything that a NFL, NBA, or Major League Baseball player does. And this topic is the most infuriating of all. The owners should make the players just stand, and that is it. That's the prerogative of the owners, and they have every right to do that and enforce it. You don't see this in the NBA. You don't see this in baseball, but so in football, this has become something of just so tough and unnecessary when one of these players will give up a game check. I will take them seriously. Other than that, there is no symbolic gesture to what they're doing. All it's doing is making fans like me upset.
Well, look, Scott, let me stop you. Let me stop you, okay? It said all that it's doing. It's making fans like you, not making all the fans out there. You know, if you take a step back again, you know, that's not what their intent here is to anger fans or whatnot. And first of all, by the way, this doesn't necessarily fall on a lack of institutional control by the owners. Okay, that's part of it here. But the NFL as a whole, I think if they would have found a better solution to this thing when it first started to maybe spread a couple of years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. NBA has a plan in place for stuff like this. The NBA has followed suit. The NBA also does a better job of engaging its dialogue with the players as opposed to the way the NFL does so with their players. And that is one of the reasons why you have this problem now with an imperfect solution. And when I say imperfect solution, it basically means you don't have one. Because any time that there is a wrinkle to something like this, and anybody wants to maybe come at it from a different angle, and, you know, you saw this thing that leaked yesterday with the Miami Dolphins, which got it all talking up again. Whenever something like this happens, all of a sudden the flames, they get fanned. And just when you thought that we're done with it, that we've moved on, there always seems to be something or another that blows it way out of proportion and then gets it all up and fired again and gets the masses all hot and heavy on it. As I said, I wish this would go away. I wish that it would just come down to playing the game on Sundays and we can worry about football. But because there's no solution, and I point the finger at both parties here, players, owners, both. Okay, everybody's got a hand in this. Until you get a solution, it's not going away, unfortunately.
Sir, with all due respect, when an NFL player just declines to take his paycheck for this form of protest, then everybody, not only me, but everybody will take this seriously. It's a simple sideshow to most fans. You're isolating it to me, but most fans see it as I do, and they're infuriated with it, and they want it to go away. I agree with you that the owners bungled it, and I also agree with you that outside of what they do on the field as a commodity and a product, I really don't care what they say
and
or
you
do
shouldn't.
either.
You shouldn't.
But this should be almost like when Reagan fired the air controllers. The owners should just implement it and that be done with it, and then fine players for engaging in it.
Well, Scott,
until they get suspended and go
Scott,
away.
remember
they need
something.
to be put in their place.
Well, Scott, and I thank you for the phone call. That might be a little strong there. But remember something. They had an opportunity to do just that. What you just said, to have a uniform system in place. They had that chance. And what did they come up with? They gave you a non-solution solution. If you don't want to stand for the anthem, stay in the locker room. Huh? Well, what does that mean? Right? And if for those who elect to come out onto the field, you got to stand or else you're going to have to face some punishment and face penalties. And as I said, are we keeping score now? Are we keeping score? Like, are we, and how is that going to work? Like, let's all amuse ourselves for a second here. And let's have a good laugh. All right? Because you need laughter in the world. What if that was going to be the plan here once the season starts in September? Are they going to have, like, spy cameras? Is this going to be like Spygate all over again? And they're going to have these surveillance cameras all over, that these teams are going to plant in their stadiums, and they're going to have them zeroed in on the sidelines from, like, 15 different angles to see who's out there, who's not out there? Are they going to have, like, cameras in the tunnels, in the hallways, seeing who's still in the locker room, who's in the tunnel, but maybe he's got, like, 1 foot on? Is there going to be, like, a technicality? What if you have a guy who's standing in the tunnel, but yet he has, like, 1 foot on the field? Does that mean he was on the field for the anthem and maybe he wasn't standing properly? Or was it because he was in the tunnel and he gets the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't on the sidelines? Like, how are we going to delineate the two? Like I said, there's so much gray area. It's like nonsense here. How are you not able to come up with a solution to where everybody's on board with this? There's no way it should have dragged on as long as this has. No way. Michael in San Antonio is on ESPN Radio. What's up, Michael?
How you doing today?
What's up, Mike?
Oh, I have a question. All this Colin Kaepernick standing up and choosing to sit down for the national anthem, I mean, it's way overblown. You have owners of these teams who want to now get players to stand for the national anthem. It's their right to stand or not to stand for the national anthem. They pay players to get on the field and to play the game, whether it be basketball, football, baseball. But the owners are taking it into their hands and blackball Kaepernick from the NFL because he chose to protest on a higher stage. But the athletes don't realize that they really control the situation, because if they choose not to even suit up and even play the game, now you're affecting the owners from making money.
No, you are. Michael, you're right. Now that's an elective that they have. You're 100% right, and I thank you for the phone call. But our guys at this stage of the game, and I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them. Remember, and Rob reminds me on Twitter, Chris Long gave up significant chunk of change, for example, last year. He was one of the guys, right? Donating several checks, to give to charitable causes and whatnot. That's great. But, and I'm not just pinpointing one player here in particular, but Chris Long's been in the game now for a while. Chris Long has signed a few NFL contracts, made some decent money. His financial state of affairs probably in a different ballpark than, let's say, a young player who's maybe in his first or second year. He was a 6th round draft pick. Maybe he would like to do something like that. Maybe he would like to donate his own check and give it up for a reason, but he can't because he needs the money, because he doesn't have enough tucked away, as opposed to a veteran who's been in the league now for a decade, if you know what I'm saying. Not everybody's finances are exactly equal to one another. But that's only one example. That's only one way you could possibly go out there and look to make a statement. This could have been handled better on both sides. Seriously, all the way around. All the way around. And now you're sitting here and we're still talking about this how many years after the fact? League is in California. League, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
How you doing, man?
What's up, Lee?
Great listening to you. You definitely are covering all the points and aspects that everybody's giving. But I do think there's a clear, simple solution.
Yeah.
My cousin Bernard Pollard, he played in the league for about 10, 11 years.
He was the guy who they named a rule after him because he went low on Tom Brady.
Exactly. So he was on the player conduction committee for a while after that. You know, he got a lot of fines. You know, winning Super Bowl with Baltimore. But but going back to that, the solution is pretty simple, man. Mm-hmm. Number one, the guaranteed contracts the players can't sit because the contracts aren't guaranteed. So if you were to sit 2-3 games and give up a game check and then get injured in the ninth game, ninth week, then and you get cut, what social justice would you make besides, losing out on money and maybe never making it back to the NFL? So financially, they're never in that position until they get guaranteed contracts, which I think that Kaepernick started the stance for a certain reason. And I believe that both sides are taking it and playing with it and using it as a bargaining tool now, because it could be simply said where, hey, the NFL does exactly what the NBA does. Put the money into the neighborhoods where the problems are, and because the NBA does a great job of being in the community, being in the field, the players, you see them visually. The Lakers, I'm here in LA, the Lakers, the Clippers, they're in. Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, you see them with the kids in the communities where it affects, and then you see the change because the kids are seeing the players. And the NFL does not do that at all in this community where most of the players are African American and they come from really, really poor communities. So that's what I think the clear solution is, because the NFL is getting paid for televising the flag. So they're not going to not do that. They're getting paid. They have a contract. They're not going to not do that. So that's not an option. But it wasn't.
But League, it wasn't always that case. Or that wasn't always the case. Remember. And, that's only something that kind of just came about again, only in the last couple of years when this became an issue. And I thank you for the phone call. You give Cousin Bernard a shout out from us as well. Hope he's doing good. But, hey, I don't think it's a secret the NFL wants this to go away. They want it to go away. Look at how they responded yesterday, right? As soon as word got out that the Dolphins could possibly be in the market here to suspend players 4 games if they didn't sign for the anthem, or if they didn't stand for the anthem and didn't, respect the anthem, that became a huge uproar. So all of a sudden they have to, no, we're still working it out. No, we're still talking. Nothing is definitive yet. We're still talking. Because remember something else too. All right? It's no secret. And I know that ESPN is a partner in the National Football League, has been for decades. Okay? But numbers are down. It's no secret. Okay? The game has taken a hit a little bit over the last couple of years. And I'm not just blaming it all on this particular issue. I think the safety aspect of things also factors into it as well. Let's even just keep it on the field as well, on another aspect. What about the way the game is played? You talk to people who will tell you, I'm not as much of a fan of this game in the way it's played, professional football in 2018, as opposed to the way it was played years ago. It's more wide open now. It's too pass happy now. It's like arena football now. It's like video game now, where the emphasis is on scoring points and, the restrictions that are placed on defensive players and whatnot. All those things factor in to where I think the game has taken some hits here and taken some body shots in the last couple of seasons. So any additional thing that could possibly hamper their state of well-being is something that the league wants to eliminate, and rightfully so. And I think that this anthem thing has certainly become one of those factors. Not saying it's the biggest one, not saying it's the only one, but it is one. And you got to at least acknowledge that. And that's why in a perfect world, you know what? They hope they get a solution hammered out, which is going to appease as many parties as possible before the season starts here in a couple of weeks. And my advice, if I can give some friendly advice here, maybe work extra hard at it. Maybe see if you can accomplish that. Maybe you want to see if you can get this whole thing straightened out before we kick that ball off in September for real. Or else you're going to have to also deal with a problem that's not going away anytime soon. John is in Beverly Hills. He's up next. John, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
I'm doing fine. First of all, I would like to address the caller, Scott, who tried to speak for many fans. I feel like he's absolutely off the mark because, we don't care, most of us, most of the people that I talk to. But speaking for myself, okay, and the people in my environment, I think the issue that we've really been observing here is the suppressive behavior of the NFL owners. They make more money than any other sports in the world, and yet they have a 53-man roster, okay, which puts incredible pressure on the bodies and the health of these players. When you're making that much money, the least you should have is a 63-man roster. We're talking about starting teams, offense and defense. Right there, that's 44 players. Okay, so you got 9 players left for special teams, okay? What about your third-string quarterback? Okay, you can do the numbers. You're an intelligent man.
And John, think about that. You don't even dress that many guys on game day either.
Exactly. But this, I remember, just like you, 10, 20 years ago, I'm a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
And there's nobody on the field for the national anthem. So why all of a sudden, after this issue of bringing this to light because of suppressive behavior of people of color, now all of a sudden, okay, you guys have to come out for the national anthem and stand for it. So that is absolutely not representing our rights as American citizens. It's our right to protest. So I'm really watching this. And when this collective bargaining agreement comes up, I'm going to put total support behind the players. And I'm really going to investigate the ways that I can really utilize my power to really enlighten the society to the practices of these NFL owners that have suppressed the players, that have really been greedy and not really looked into the health of the players, and really have just been inhumane as human beings.
John, and I thank you for the phone call. Maybe that last one is a little strong there when you say inhumane. That might be a little out of the box. Come on, inhumane. These guys, they are making a pretty decent living. Even the guys who are playing on rookie contracts, it's not chump change. They're doing pretty good there. And when you sign up to play professional football, is it dangerous? Absolutely. Are there inherent risks come with playing professional football? Absolutely. But you know what you're getting into. Nowadays, with all this conversation in 2018, unless you've been living out underneath a rock, you know what you're getting into. You check things all the time, right? Like your email or social media, but Discover asks, what about checking something as important as your credit score? Well, Discover makes it quick and easy with their credit scorecard, which is free for everyone, even if you're not a customer. See your FICO credit score and other important credit information, and once you know your score, you should check to see if your current credit card is the best fit for you. Learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations do apply. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's ESPN Radio.
I'm a squeaky toy, and I've got one job, getting chomped on by this little ankle sniffer. So pardon me for feeling inept compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like while I'm getting slobbered on, Geico is creating cool technology like their mobile app, which lets people pay their bills or file a claim. Plus, Geico is the fastest growing auto insurer for the last 10 years. Is it too much for me to ask for one more feature? Fast and friendly claim service like Geico, maybe? Oh, great. I'm getting buried again.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
You're listening to the Stephen A.Smith Show podcast.
Closing out the week in style, Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's ESPN Radio. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. Now, when a player doesn't like a contract, they hold out, right? Well, Straight Talk Wireless, you never, ever have to because there's no contracts. They use the exact same 4G LTE towers as the big carriers do, but for a lot less. Straight Talk Wireless, it's only at Walmart. Refer to terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com. And you want to tune in this Sunday, right? Baseball's back. I'm looking forward to it. You got the Subway Series going on here in New York this weekend, part 2. Aaron Judge and the Yankees will host the Mets. presented by Indeed. Coverage of Sunday Night Baseball begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app, and at 8 p.m. on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app. And the Sunday night affair, as a matter of fact, is going to have, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the pitching matchups here, the Sunday game is going to have, yes, Jacob deGrom against Masahiro Tanaka. So deGrom is a guy who, of course, every Yankee fan wishes was pitching for their team. And the Met fan hopes that, well, he just keeps pitching in a Mets uniform as we are getting closer and closer to the trade deadline on July the 31st, now just 11 days away. So we'll see what happens on that front. We were talking about the football stuff a little bit earlier in terms of, the upcoming season and who's predicted to do what and who could do what. The Indianapolis Colts are a team that's undergone a considerable facelift here over the last couple of seasons. They thought, of course, Josh McDaniels was going to be their head coach until he decided, for reasons unbeknownst to any of us, that he backed out of a deal. And so Frank Reich, who, spearheaded the Eagles' run to a Super Bowl last year as their offensive coordinator, he gets the job. So it's Frank Reich's team. And, obviously you take that job with the hopes that you're going to have yourself a healthy Andrew Luck, and he is going to be your signal caller. And Andrew Luck has had a rough go of it of late. He hasn't had any luck trying to stay healthy here. And he's gone under the knife. He's had the shoulder issues. And, given all the time that he's missed, you just wonder if he's even going to be healthy enough to go out there and be a productive every down, every game quarterback for your franchise. Because I don't know about you, if I'm walking into a job there with the Indianapolis Colts, that is a team that I say, all right, yeah, it makes the job a heck of a lot more appealing if I know I have a franchise quarterback. And he missed all of 2017. There really weren't any indications that he was even going to be healthy from the get-go here for 2018. However, GM Chris Ballard a little while ago told some members of the media that Andrew Luck is going to be ready to rock. He is going to be healthy, and he is going to start training camp with the rest of the club, and he is not going to have to start out on the physically unable to perform list. So that's a step in the right direction. I'm sure they're going to manage his reps. I'm sure they're going to make sure that, he doesn't overdo it a little bit. I don't even know how much you're going to see him in the preseason. But the fact that he is going to go out there and he's going to be able to take part, in activities there in training camp and sling the ball all over the field, start to build that rapport with his wide receivers and his supporting cast, I think that benefits you in a big time way. I don't expect the Colts to be a big player this year. I don't think that they're going to certainly be a factor in the AFC South, not when you talk about some of those other teams there. And, you think about the AFC South, that is a really intriguing division the more and more you think about it, right? Because the Jacksonville Jaguars came of age last year. They made that run all the way to the conference championship game. We're this close to actually getting to the Super Bowl. Tennessee had a playoff win last year on the road in Kansas City. And the Houston Texans, let's be honest, their season, I think, is also going to be predicated on staying healthy, more so with their phenom quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who in the brief cameo that he had last year looked like he was the real deal. He looked like the guy who was, leading the Clemson Tigers to a national championship and knocking off the big bad Alabama Crimson Tide. So just those three teams alone, between Jacksonville, between Tennessee, between Houston, and then even if Andrew Luck is healthy for a full year with the Colts, that AFC South, which was considered probably, as bad a division as we've had in the NFL for the last several years, got a chance to be one worth watching now that you have multiple teams who are going to be part of the mix. Nothing wrong with that. Let's say hi to Lee, who's calling from L.A. Lee, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
How you doing, sir? For anybody who don't know already, last year, my Eagles, we took down a legend. Mr. Brady should be inducted while he's still playing. We took him down with a second-string quarterback. It's going on. We going back to back. Okay, and for those who don't know, we going back to back. How you going to take down a legacy player with a second-string quarterback? And you think we're not going to do it this year? Okay, and I want to say something that I thought I would never say. Okay, I'm going to take it to the Dodgers. Congratulations. You got yourself a security blanket. He's a Dominican Ted Williams. For those who don't remember, the legend Ted Williams used to play for Boston. They got them the Dominican Ted Williams. They did the same thing this year that Golden State did 3 years ago, and they got a security blanket and Kevin Durant. Congratulations. It's about time. Because my girl's name is Dorothy Wang. She was 6 months old the last time you Dodgers were world champions. She was 6 months old. Now she's 30. God damn.
Lee, thank you for the phone call. You know, some interesting thoughts there. It's interesting, though, that Kevin Durant could be referred to as a security blanket, joining a Warriors team, which, you know, already with that core had a couple championships, or had won a championship, I should say, before Durant even got there. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Eagles won't win the Super Bowl again this year, just because, you know, that's not what teams do anymore. You got to go back a long time before a team, or since a team won back-to-back Super Bowls. And not for nothing, I mean, you know, how many yards did Brady throw for in that Super Bowl? Like 500 something? And how many yards of offense did the Patriots have in that game? It's not like you went out there and completely put the clamps down on them. You know? It's not like it was, you know, like the 85 Bears or whatnot. You know, it wasn't 31-3 Eagles. I think the Patriots moved the football a little bit in that game. And yes, for those of you that didn't know, Ted Williams, he used to play baseball and he was a very good hitter. And for those that are, you know, Googling that name now, shame on you if you don't know who Ted Williams is. Jack is calling, and I'm very jealous right now. Jack is calling from Maui. Jack, how are things there? And I wish I was there.
I'm actually transplanted from New Jersey, so it's nice. It's actually early, so I was going to say I got to say good afternoon to you.
Jack, you want to trade?
Early here.
You know, I'm from New Jersey. You want to trade? I'll take the Maui. You could come back here. You could stay in my house. I don't care.
That's all right. Well, yeah, we could do a flop. No problem. I'm coming back in the winter time. So, how you doing? Anyway, talking about this anthem stuff, it's obviously getting old and repetitive and redundant. But my take on it is that they had it right the first time, and I don't think. You know, when they made them come out after the DOD, would they take $15 million for the flag thing for, you know, standing there for the anthem? So when the players were in the locker room, I mean, as a kid and growing up, and I think it was 2009, I think, Dan, when they made them come out. I mean,
08, 09, really something like that. Yeah.
Did anybody think about that? I mean, nobody didn't think that they were unpatriotic because they were in a locker room during the national anthem. And second of all, the thing that bothers you the most, I used to go to a lot of games, especially at MetLife.
Mm-hmm.
The owners want to be so patriotic. Shut down the concession stand for a minute and a half. Shut down the guy hawking game days. Shut down the guy hawking yearbooks. People walking up and down the aisles taking selfies during national anthem. That's not unpatriotic, but these guys are.
Not even everybody's even in there. Not even everybody, like you said, not even everybody's in their seats for the national anthem. Let's be perfectly honest.
What about the people in the parking lot that are whacking down beers that aren't even going into the game? I know they're not in the stadium. I'm being a little facetious here,
right.
But these are the same people that talk about these guys who do honor the military on Military Appreciation Week every single year, and to my knowledge, none of them ever sat out for that.
No, I
saw when they're wearing the camouflage hats and the camo uniforms, that's all about the military, and they're all there doing it.
And Jack, you know, it was a funny thing too, and I thank you for the phone call. You're right about that. There's a little bit of cynicism there. There is, totally, and enjoy Maui, by the way. What about the guy who's on a knee, you know, taking a knee because he's trying to get, you know, one of the cameramen trying to get the perfect shot from below of one of the players or something like that? What about him? He's not standing for the anthem. It's just, like I said, they need to get this thing figured out. It's the bottom line. They need to get this thing figured out because it's gone way past the point of ridiculousness. Both sides. Both sides. This is not something that should have dragged on as long as it has. We'll get into some more of the NBA stuff, some fallout from the latest transaction involving Carmelo Anthony, and how maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder come away winners in more ways than one. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio, closing out the work week on a Power Friday. Now, you can surprise a friend or loved one today with a bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely for free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. So, trade goes down yesterday in the NBA. And the principals involved, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, Philly also in there. But the main movers and shakers, as they say, Carmelo Anthony gets sent to the Atlanta Hawks. You know that he's not going to be a member of the Atlanta Hawks. They'll just waive him, and then he can sign with a free agent. We talked about that. We'll get to that in a second. Atlanta also gets a protected first-round pick from 2022. So think about it. Some of the names that are going to be in that 2022 draft, you got guys who are still like in, high school right now. Right? That'll be part of that experience. Maybe even more. Maybe even in middle school at this point, depending on what the rule is going to be like in 2022. But that's down the road. Oklahoma City, on the other hand, in return, not only do they alleviate themselves of Carmelo Anthony's contract and save some money on the luxury tax. How about this? Okay, Oklahoma City gets rid of Melo's salary, which was set to be $27.9 million. Right? If you combine that with the luxury tax, $73 million they're going to be saving in the tax. So if you add all that up, they're saving almost $100 million thereabouts. I mean, Oklahoma City comes out smelling like roses here. And oh, by the way, you get yourself Dennis Schroeder, who's 24 years old, who's still a very productive basketball player. And he's a guy that, look, I know that there's some talk about him. There's work ethic questions and so on and so forth, and that's kind of followed him around. I understand all those things. But he's a guy who's still under contract for 3 more years, makes about $15 million a pop. Not too shabby, but he had the best season of his career last year. It's a guy who's almost a 20-point-a-game player. To have that depth now in your backcourt, to be able to give Russell Westbrook some help. And you remember Oklahoma City last year, one of their downfalls was the fact that when you looked at their second unit, they just didn't have anything. But Schroeder wore out his welcome with the Hawks. Plus, remember, they drafted Trae Young. They traded for Jeremy Lin. They've already moved on. So now you get a very, very capable piece going over to Oklahoma City. I'm not saying that the Thunder are ready to mount a challenge in the Western Conference, but you have Russell Westbrook. You have Paul George. You hope Andre Robertson comes back healthy. You have Dennis Schroeder now to be your spark plug, your scorer off the bench. Steven Adams, of course, doing his thing down low. Now all of a sudden Oklahoma City looks like a team that certainly can at least win a round in the West. And I know that the Lakers went out and got themselves LeBron James this offseason, which counts as a win. And I know that Golden State made the trade for Boogie Cousins. But you look at what Oklahoma City's done in convincing Paul George to stick around, bringing in a guy like Schroeder, and maybe most importantly, ridding themselves of Carmelo Anthony and that contract. Oklahoma City's had themselves as good an offseason as you could possibly have here in the NBA. Let's be perfectly honest with that one. Where does Melo wind up? Sounds like Houston. You ask me, though, as I've said, I think his best fit is with the Lakers for a year. Give them a little bit more threat offensively. Take some of that pressure off of LeBron James for the upcoming season. Thanks to everybody all week long who've listened, tweeted, called. It's been a blast. I'll talk to you soon. Dan Graca filling in for Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Have a good weekend, everyone.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.